President Nancy Corrigan, proceeding then on agenda items 5A and 5B, petition hearings. And I want to read the following procedures to establish our petition hearing process in our virtual meeting setting for all present, so that we kind of know the order, we can approach this in an organized manner. So agenda items 5A and 5B are petition hearings for Wen Chen, CPA, number 137781, and Amit Kabani, CPA, license number 58074, and Kabani and Company, Inc., license COR 4710. Before we start each of these two matters, Ms. Reed, the CBA's Board Relations Analyst, will conduct a roll call to establish the CBA members present for the matter and to establish a quorum. After roll call is conducted, I will ask if any members need to recuse themselves from the matter. After the quorum has been established and any recusals occur, His Honor will then take appearances and will swear in the petitioner. His Honor will allow the Deputy Attorney General to provide an overview of the petition before us and seek to enter into evidence the petition packet and any additional materials. His Honor will then provide the petitioner and their counsel the opportunity to provide an opening statement and present and enter into evidence any additional documents. Next, His Honor will allow for the Deputy Attorney General to examine the petitioner. The petitioner's counsel shall then be afforded the opportunity to examine the petitioner. After the examinations, I will request that His Honor ask Ms. Reed to perform a roll call of each CBA member to allow members to ask any questions they may have of the petitioner. If a member does not have a question, simply state no questions so that we have that for the record. After Ms. Reed is finished polling members for questions, I will ask if any member would like to ask a follow-up question based on the previous questions and answers posed. If so, members are asked to raise their hand and wait for me to call upon them for those follow-up questions. After the CBA member's examination of the petitioner, His Honor shall provide the Deputy Attorney General and petitioner, including petitioner's counsel, the opportunity to provide any closing statements or remarks. After the closing remarks are received, His Honor shall close the record and we move on to the next petitioner. Note that once both petition hearings have been concluded, the members will meet in closed session to deliberate on the petition hearings. One final reminder to all present is that when you're asking a question, when you are responding to a question or making a comment, it is important to remember that a court reporter will be capturing and recording the petition hearing, so please be cognizant to not speak over another person and be close to the microphone on your computer or your telephone so you can be heard clearly. So if there are no questions regarding this process, we will go to the roll call in the first case of Ms. Wen Chen. Ms. Reed, would you please call the roll and let us know whether we have a quorum? Thank you. Carrie Ann Farrell Hine. Oh.
Present.
Dan Jacobson.
Here.
Soshi Leon.
Here.
Luz Molina Lopez.
Present.
Dee Dee Owens.
Present.
Errol Pay.
Present.
Deirdre Robinson.
Present.
Katrina Salazar.
Present.
Michael Savoy.
Present.
Mark Silverman.
Present.
Yin Tu.
Here.
And Nancy Corrigan, present. And we have a quorum. Thank you. So with that, having a quorum, we'll turn the process over and welcome Judge Van Rooyen to commence the process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And for our court reporter, just make sure that we start the recording now if you haven't already. We are on the record before the California Board of Accountancy to review various petitions. The first one on the agenda today is a petition for reinstatement of surrendered certificate by Wen Chen. This is CPA number 137781 and OAH case number 2021010286. My name is Wim van Rooyen. I am an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings for the state of California, and I've been assigned to preside over this matter today. Today is March 25th, 2021. It's approximately 1:45 p.m. now. Matter was noticed for hearing at 1:30. We're conducting this matter via WebEx conference due to the COVID-19 public health crisis and the governor's executive order N-29-20 dated March 17th, 2020. And I will just let the record reflect that we have just taken a roll call of the board members and that we do have a quorum of the board present today. May I please have formal appearances, starting with the Deputy Attorney General, please.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Ted Durkar, Supervising Deputy Attorney General, and I'm appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California on the petition for reinstatement by Wen Chen, pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 5115 and Government Code Section 11522.
Good afternoon to you, Mr. Durkar. And then for the petitioner.
This is Seth Weinstein, Law Offices of Seth Weinstein on behalf of Wen Chen. Ms. Chen is present in my office, socially distanced. We are trying to get a video feed for her, but unfortunately, it's not working right now. So I'm going to show you Ms. Chen is present in my office. Hopefully you can see her.
I'll let the record reflect we can see her. She was just waving at us. Thank you so much. And welcome to you, Mr. Weinstein. Welcome to you, Ms. Chen, as well.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. And the board president has already explained the procedures that will be happening during the hearing today, so I'm not going to repeat all of that now. But essentially, first, we're going to get started. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Durkar to provide us with a procedural history of Ms. Chen's case and the disciplinary matters that took place before today, and then to introduce the petition packet as well. Mr. Durkar, I'll turn it over to you first. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I would first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1 the original petition packet with accompanying documents. Everyone should have a copy of it, and the documents total 98 pages, and they've been sequentially stamped starting with WC-PET-001. And the notice of hearing for this matter is at pages 96 to 97. So unless there's objection, I would move to have that admitted into evidence.
Any objection, Mr. Weinstein, to the petition packet, Exhibit 1?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. Then Exhibit 1, the entire petition packet is admitted.
I'll now offer a summary of this case. Wen Chen received CPA certificate number 137781 on November 15th, 2018. Her license history would be at pages 94 to 95 in your packet. Her license was suspended by a stipulated interim suspension order on July 21st, 2019. Then she stipulated to surrender her license after an accusation was filed, and the board accepted that surrender effective November 4th, 2019. The underlying discipline arose from Ms. Chen's submission of a certificate of general experience in October 2018. That certificate falsely claimed that she had completed the qualifying general accounting experience while working at Wing To Ng and Associates under the supervision of a CPA with the initial ACR. I will refer to that person as ACR for reasons of privacy and not use the person's full name. In fact, the principal of that firm where Ms. Chen was working, the principal, his name was Mr. Ng, he had been Ms. Chen's direct supervisor for the whole time that she had worked at that firm. The CPA with the initials ACR had not been Ms. Chen's supervisor, and when interviewed, ACR denied having signed the certificate of experience. And then with regard to what supervision means for purposes of that certificate, the certificate itself says, supervised experience means that the applicant's supervisor shall have reviewed and evaluated the applicant's qualifying work on a routine and recurring basis and shall have authority and oversight over the applicant. The accusation that was filed against Ms. Chen, that starts at page 81 in your packet, and the factual allegations, should you like to look at them, those are at pages 87 to 88. The stipulated surrender of her license and the order by the board starts at page 74. No costs were imposed under this disciplinary order. Letters have been submitted along with the petition by Ms. Chen and her counsel, Seth Weinstein. Those letters explain why she believes her petition should be granted. Ms. Chen's letter is at pages 15 to 20. In that letter, she claims that she was not aware that the principal and owner of Wingto Ng and Associates, Mr. Ng, was unlicensed while she worked for his firm. She claims that she had difficulty getting a certificate of experience from him when she asked for it, although he had told her she would get one. And when she finally did get one from him, it was one that said she had been supervised by ACR. Ms. Chen claims that Mr. Ng said ACR was his partner. Ms. Chen explains that she went ahead and submitted the certificate to the board due to naivete. She admits that this was a mistake and says that she takes responsibility for it. Ms. Chen has submitted a new certificate of general experience based upon her work at the firm Cohn Resnick from January 2019 to June 2020. That certificate is at page 37 of your packet. And I would be prepared to proceed with questions for Ms. Chen, but believe now I'll turn the matter back over to Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Durkar. Yes, I believe in accordance with the board's procedures, before we do that, I just want to give Mr. Weinstein an opportunity to make an opening statement if he wishes to do so. Would you like to make an opening statement, Mr. Weinstein?
Yes, very briefly, Your Honor. And then I would also, I know I've done these hearings before, as has Mr. Durkar. However, I would ask, is it okay, Your Honor, if I question Ms. Chen, or do you just want both of us to give a summation of why we believe Ms. Chen should be granted this petition for reconsideration?
I believe the way that this particular board sets the procedure, they do want the Attorney General to ask your client some questions, and then you will have an opportunity to ask questions as well. So that's the way we'll proceed, and then you'll have an opportunity after the board member's question to make closing arguments as well. So
thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, no problem at all.
I would like to make a brief opening statement, if I may.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, members of the California Board of Accountancy, Ms. Wen Chen comes before this board requesting the reinstatement of her certified public accountant license. It was surrendered pursuant to a disciplinary order based on an accusation number A-2019-73, that alleged 3 violations. 1, false statements provided in obtaining a license. 2, failure to obtain qualifying general accounting experience. And 3, license secured by fraud, deceit, or misrepresentation. In that stipulated surrender agreement, Ms. Chen did not contest that if the matter proceeded to hearing, the board could discipline Ms. Chen for false statements provided in obtaining a license and securing a license by fraud, deceit, or misrepresentation. As you will hear from Ms. Chen, she did admit in that stipulated surrender that she failed to obtain qualifying general accounting experience and therefore knew that she could not hold a license because after all of the facts came to light, as you will hear, she knew that she did not have the proper hours. After surrendering her license, the evidence is going to show that Ms. Chen did in fact obtain qualifying general accounting experience that was sufficient in order to obtain her certified public accountant license back. She also has character letters from 5 CPAs, and she has completed quite a few continuing education hours as well as an ethics class. On the petition, it states that that was pending. That has now been completed, as Ms. Chen is going to tell you. So we would respectfully request that at the conclusion of this hearing, you grant Ms. Chen her certified public accounting license back under any terms and conditions deemed necessary by the California Board of Accountancy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weinstein. I appreciate that. And I just want to make sure, were there any additional documents that you wanted to offer that are not already included in the petition packet?
This is a court reporter. I can't hear anything, Judge.
I can't hear anything either. Mr. Weinstein, are you still there?
I can hear you, Your Honor. I just turned the computer so you can see Ms. Chen.
Oh, that's fine. So I just one remaining question before we turn to your client. Did you have any additional documents to submit other than what's already been admitted in the petition packet?
So we do have one completion of the ethics class that was completed yesterday. I'm not sure how the board or Your Honor would like me to submit that to everybody. I can certainly email it. I'm not sure how that, because we're not in the OAH setting, so I'm not sure if I can just email it to Mr. Durkar in OAH.
Mr. Durkar, do you have a position on that?
My only concern would be that if the board is going to deliberate today, I don't believe that the board would be able to consider that. And so I think that would be too late, but I would not mind hearing from Ms. Chen about any recent experience or education that she's gained.
Thank you, and that was my thought exactly as well. I think if we're going to be deliberating today in a closed session, but Ms. Chen can certainly testify under oath as to her completion of that last course, and the board can consider it and give it whatever weight it deems appropriate. So that would be my suggestion, instead of holding the record open and postponing consideration of the petition to another day. I don't think that that's what you'd want, Mr. Weinstein. So I would just ask your client about that and she can testify about it. Fair enough?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Then I will turn it over to Mr. Durkar to question the petitioner first, and I will have to swear in Ms. Chen as well before you do so. Let me see. Ms. Chen, can you hear me? You are extremely faint. I cannot hear you. Can the court reporter hear Ms. Chen?
This is a court reporter. I cannot hear her, Judge.
I cannot either. I'm hoping
Can
we
you
have a
hear me?
different. Yes, I can hear you now. Much better.
Okay. Maybe it's like my volume didn't turn on enough. Sorry.
No problem, but I'm just concerned you can hear me clearly as well, Ms. Chen, correct?
Yes.
Terrific. And we can hear you clearly too. Thank you so much. All right, if you could just raise your right hand where you are and I will swear you in. Do you solemnly state under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you so much. And can you adjust your camera slightly because you're actually cut off? We can't see your face right now. We just see the top of your head. At least that's all I'm seeing.
I think it's the light, the back light, the reflection. Can you see me more now?
Well, it's just on my end, all I see is the top of your head. I don't actually, your face is not in the picture.
What about right now?
I haven't, is it just me? I just want to make sure, Mr. Durkar, is it just me that can't see her face?
I see two images of her, and one is in a box that says Wen Chen, and I only see the top of her head. And the
Right.
other is on Seth Weinstein's feed, and I see her
There-
whole face.
There we go, Ms. Chen. Now much better. Now we can see your face. Perfect.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't know, like, because I use the other laptop and logged in, but I don't know if it works, so I will try to use the other
Okay.
one.
Okay, yeah. So just keep it the way. In fact, we can see to just above your eyes now. And you were a little bit better earlier on. Can you adjust it just other way? There we go. Stop. There you go. Perfect.
Okay.
Now we can see
Okay.
your image. Fantastic. Okay. And if you could just spell your name for the record, just now that you're testifying as a witness, please.
My first name is Wen, W-E-N, and last name is Chen, C-H-E-N.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Chen, and thank you for your patience. And while we try to get the audio and video issues sorted out. So if you get asked any question today that's unclear, vague, ambiguous, just let us know. We can get it rephrased. If you do answer a question, we will assume that you understood it. Fair enough?
Okay, sure. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Durkar, your witness, please.
Yes. Good afternoon, Ms. Chen. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. You submitted a certificate of general experience in 2018, which said that the CPA ACR had been your supervisor. Is it true that ACR had not been your supervisor?
No. He has been a supervisor.
She had not been your
Your
supervisor?
Honor, if I may, I think there's a confusion as to ACR for Ms. Chen. It was a little bit confusing, the instructions, and English is not her first language, so I know this is a little bit break from protocol, but can I just explain the name situation to Ms. Chen again?
Any objection, Mr. Durkar?
No, I'd like the record to be clear. Go ahead, Mr. Weinstein. I don't mind.
So, Ms. Chen, ACR would be the individual that you're not allowed to refer to. That is not Wingto NG.
Oh.
That's the other individual.
Okay. Okay. I understand now.
All right. So
Okay,
why don't you
no.
go ahead and re-ask the question, Mr. Durkar, now with that clarification.
Okay, so the individual who signed your certificate of experience in 2018, that person had not supervised you, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. In the first paragraph of your letter, which is at page 15 of the packet, you stated that Mr. Ng was holding himself out as a CPA the entire time you worked for his firm. Do you have any evidence? Is there anything in the packet to support that?
Yes, I do have the improvement because every paycheck I received from him is showing his title as Win2NG, CPA on it, and I think that's as an attachment in the package.
In
And
what
also
other
when
ways? Go ahead. I interrupted your answer.
Okay, so, and also if you do the research like on Google, search his name and showing with like a Win2NG CPA everywhere. And this is also in the attachment. I think we have it.
How many people worked at this firm while you were there?
About 5 people.
How many accountants?
I think besides my boss, they're all accountants.
The person who signed your experience form, I'm not clear on whether she worked there or not. What was her role with respect to Wingto Ng and Associates?
When I received the experience form from Win2NG and I saw the name on it, I questioned him. I was like, who is this person? And he told me that it's my partner.
Did you not know that person, this supposed partner?
I don't know, and I don't question him because as an employee, you don't know who is on the operating agreement for your own firm. Then my boss is not going to show me. So I worked for him for a long time, and I totally believe in him about what he told me.
I'm going to change gears here a little bit and ask you a different kind of question about the profession. Can you tell us why ethics are important to the work that CPAs do?
CPAs have to follow the right rule to do the right thing with all of the regulations as a CPA.
All right. There are a lot of rules that pertain to the profession, but are there, can you expand beyond the fact that there are many rules to comply with, the importance of ethics, the way the profession might impact society at large?
Can you rephrase the question? I'm kind of getting lost.
You know what? I'll move along. I don't want to make this excessively difficult, and I understand that English is your second language. All right. Have you done anything to prepare yourself to make better decisions in the future if you become a CPA again?
Yes, I will for sure. I was naive for what happened. I did trust Wing to NG, totally believed in what he told me, and even though he delayed on my certificate of qualifying experience and give it to me with the other person's name on it, he claimed is our partner. I should have known that there was something wrong, but was naive at that time. But in the future, I definitely will change this. I will check out for the people I worked for and vet all of my employers, and just ask for everything with my supervisor to confirm with them. And in the future, if I see something wrong, and I will definitely report to the board.
Do you understand that CPAs will have clients from time to time that put pressure on them to reach certain conclusions?
What is? Yeah.
Counsel, this is a court reporter. I didn't hear what you said.
Oh.
Mr. Weinstein?
I'm sorry. Mr. Durkar, can you rephrase?
Do you understand that sometimes in the CPA profession, a CPA may encounter a client that puts pressure on the CPA to come to certain conclusions or reach certain results in their work?
Yes, I understand, but as a CPA, you need to do the right thing, always follow the rule. You make the right decisions, not just told by who asked you to do.
Do you feel like you're equipped to deal with that kind of ethical pressure if it comes up, whether inside of a firm or from the clients?
What's the quote mean?
I'll try to rephrase. Do you feel that you are prepared to stand up to either a client or someone within an accounting firm that might put pressure on you to do something that is not ethical?
Of course, if I think there's something wrong and then don't think it's the right thing to do, definitely I will report to the board. I'm not gonna just follow what they ask me to do.
Well, okay. Now the board sees that you did do something here where you turned in a certificate of experience that was false, but it was convenient for you to do so because it helped you to achieve your objective of getting a license. What reasons or what can you tell the board to make them believe that you will be ethical in the future?
The first I never thought I would be in this position. It was like not intentional, and I was very naive for like not checking out my prior boss. I believed in him because I was like a recent immigrant from China, and I wasn't familiar with how things work here in the United States. I thought that like given our shared background, he was going to look out for me for sure. I didn't have like a reason to suspect him like he was doing something illegitimately. And of course, it's my fault I didn't do my due diligence on him. I believed him in everything he said, and even though like he delayed on my certificate and everything, and even with other person's signature on it, I should have known there was something wrong, but I was naive. And in the future, I've like, for now, I've been taking steps to correct that situation. I'm not as naive now. It's been very humbling. I basically had to start from scratch, and I've done that. I believe I would be an excellent CPA, and this has made me a better person for sure.
Have you been doing any work as an accountant since you left the Cohn-Resnick firm in June 2020?
Yes, I worked in the other industry, in Torrance, Pelican Products, as a senior tax accountant since last year, October.
Is that full time?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, those are all the questions that I have for Ms. Chen at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Durkar. Mr. Weinstein, I'm assuming you have questions for your own client, and if so, please go ahead.
I do, Your Honor. Thank you so much. I just want to do a sound check because I know the court reporter said he had a little bit difficulty hearing me, so I want to make sure that everyone can hear me okay.
I can hear you just fine, Mr. Sangeet. Can you hear him?
This is a court reporter. You sound great. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Weinstein. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that as my cue to start working in radio, but aside from that. Okay, so Ms. Chen, when did you immigrate here to the United States from China?
In 2012.
And what was the purpose of you immigrating to the United States from China?
To study English and then get my master's in accounting and finance.
Okay, where did you obtain your master's degree in accounting?
In Keller Graduate School.
Okay, and after that, did you seek employment in order to obtain your qualifying hours to become a certified public accountant?
Yes.
How did you get linked to Wingto NG and Associates?
One of my friends referred me to him.
Okay. So when you went to Wingto NG and Associates, did you believe he was a certified public accountant?
Yes. My friend told me he was a CPA, and his name business card said he was a CPA, and he used to say he was a CPA, and his customers believed he was a CPA. And yeah, also after that, after the interview, I get hired, and even all of my paychecks that he paid me on the top is saying went to NG CPA. So like now, even if you type his name on the Google just right now, and it still shows went to NG CPA everywhere.
Okay. And how long did you work for Wingto NG and Associates?
From 2015 to 2018.
Okay. And did you believe that you were obtaining, at the time, did you believe that you were obtaining your qualifying hours to become a CPA?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And at some point in 2018, did you ask Mr. NG to certify your general experience to the Board of Accountancy?
Yes.
Okay. And what happened when you asked Mr. NG to do that?
At the beginning, he said that he will do for me. And after I kept asking him, and he kept telling me he would do it, but he didn't. And he kept telling me he already sent it in, the form, to the board, but actually he didn't do it. So I kept calling the board to check the status, and the board told me they never got it. So I confronted him and and he told me it's ready to pick it up after I bothered him for like 4 months. So I come to him and I look at the form as so it's signed by the other individual. So I questioned him about who this other individual was, and he said it's my partner, and he asked me to send it in.
Okay. And at the time, did you think there was anything wrong with, what Mr. NG was telling you?
At that time, I didn't think, but now I know I should to check.
Okay. So on May 2nd, 2019, did you attend an investigative hearing with the Board of Accountancy?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, did you learn that the board had actually revoked Mr. NG's certified public accountant license back in 2013?
Yes.
Okay. And then what did you do after you left that investigative hearing?
After the hearing, I questioned him that why is like this, and he even asked me to lie to the board to say that I should say I actually worked for that person, and I told him no, I don't want to lie, and he said sorry, that's all for this happened to me.
Okay. And then ultimately an accusation was filed against you, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you decided to surrender your license?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And in that surrender document, did you agree that if the matter went to hearing, the board could prove the first and third causes for discipline against you, which are false statements that provided in obtaining a license and securing a license by fraud, deceit, or misrepresentation?
Yes.
Okay. And then did you actually admit that you failed to obtain your qualifying general accounting experience hours in that document?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the reason that you admitted that you failed to obtain qualifying general accounting experience?
Because I know my prior boss went to NG is not a CPA anymore, so all of the hours I worked there is not validated.
Okay. So when did you become a full-time employee at Cohn Resnick?
Since January 7th, 2019.
Okay. And when did you leave your employment there?
June 2nd, 2020.
And why did you leave your employment at Cohn Resnick?
Because of the down economy of the COVID.
Okay. Was Cohn Resnick aware that you had issues with your certified public accountant license?
Yes, I disclosed, after the investigation happened, I disclosed everything to Cohn Resnick, and they're aware of my license issues, and they continue to employ me for a year after that.
Okay. And did Cohn Resnick certify your qualifying hours of experience to the Board of Accountancy for your petition for reinstatement?
Yes. My partner signed the form for me and mailed it back last year.
Okay. And did you obtain 71 continuing education hours since your employment at Cohn Resnick and since you left your employment at Cohn Resnick?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you also, as of yesterday, or early this morning, or late yesterday evening, complete an ethics class that you had put was in process on your petition?
Yes.
Okay. What ethics class was that?
It's the ethics class.
Okay, but which one?
For the CPE continuing education.
Okay. And did you obtain 5 character letters from 5 certified public accountants, all of whom are aware of your prior disciplinary matter with the Board of Accountancy?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in looking back at what happened, what do you believe you should have done differently that you did not do?
Yes, I really never think I would be in this position, and it's totally not intentional, and I was very naive for like not checking out with Win2NG, and I believed him. I was a recent immigrant from China. I wasn't familiar with how the things worked here in the United States. So I thought that, like, given our shared background, he was going to look out for me. And yeah, there's no reason I'm gonna suspect him, and he will do something illegitimately. So but it's my fault. Didn't do my due diligence, like checking out on him. I believe him in everything he said, and even though I should realize something wrong with he delayed all my certificate of qualified experience and gave me with the other person's signature. And I was super naive at that time. But for now, I definitely know. And yeah, I've been taking steps to correct that situation. And in the future, I definitely will confirm with my supervisor for everything and report to the board if I see something is wrong. And, check, do my research to vet my employer, see if there's a licensed CPA.
Okay, and do you have anything else that you want to add prior to concluding your testimony speaking to the California Board of Accountancy this afternoon?
I think my ultimate goal is to get my CPA license back under in any terms and the conditions that the board finds is necessary. I understand there's a right way to do this way, right and wrong, but I did the wrong way. It was not intentional. I should have been, not naive to do what is going on, but I feel like I was taking advantage of Win2NG because I wasn't familiar with how things worked here in the United States, having just immigrated from China. So I believe in the future I will be a qualified CPA.
Okay, I have no further questions for my client. I understand believe it goes back to the board.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weinstein. Yes, indeed. I'm going to now call on Ms. Reed to ask the individual board members if they have any questions for your client. So Ms. Reed, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines.
I have no questions at this time.
Dan Jacobson.
I also have no questions at this time.
Soshi Leon.
No questions. Thank you.
Luz Molina Lopez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I do have a few questions, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Chen, thank you very much for appearing before us today. I have a couple of questions, if you can please help me understand. Did you practice accounting in China before you arrived at the U.S.?
You mean practice, like being as an accountant?
Right.
No, I wasn't being an accountant in China.
Oh, understood. Do you still see and speak with Mr. Ng?
What do you mean? Can you rephrase it?
Well, first let me ask actually, when did you end your employment at Win2Ng and Associates?
The end of 2018.
And when was the last time that you had any communication with Mr. Ng?
After the hearing, I questioned him about all of the things going on, and I questioned him like, why you're not a CPA, and he didn't tell me, and he said sorry. And then I never talked to him. Yeah, and he said sorry, and then that's it. then I didn't contact him at all after that.
Okay. Can you tell me when that was, when the hearing was?
It's last May, like May 2nd of 2019.
Thank you. And my last question for you, so today, can you please describe how you would go about checking that a CPA license is in good standing?
Go to the CBA board website and just type the name and then search, and you will see the status for the license.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Chen.
Thank you.
D.D. Owens,
Thank you. I have no questions at this time.
Ariel Pay,
Thank you. No questions at this time.
Katrina Salazar,
Thank you. I do have a couple questions for Ms. Chen. Ms. Chen, can you clarify for me? I know you started over from scratch with the new firm and you've answered questions that you understand how to check someone's license. Can you tell me whether or not you checked yourself to see that the person who signed your new experience certificate was licensed?
No, at that time, I don't know how, because I'm just new here. I was doing everything before in China. I just immigrant here, and I don't even know how the things works here. And, you know, he is my boss. I worked for him for a long time since we're all Chinese. So I totally believe in him. I thought he is going to look out for me. And after this thing happened, I definitely know how to check, and I got my lessons from that.
So were you able?
I can clarify. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Please.
Yeah, Ms. Chen, what she was asking was from Cone Resnick, did you check the partner's license to make sure that the partner was licensed that submitted your qualifying hours, not Mr. NG?
Oh, yes, I did check. I got my license, so I'm not gonna get people trying to lie to me again.
Thank
That's
you.
how you learn from your mistake.
Thank you. And then my final question is a clarifying question, because a lot of our discussions talk about the importance of a license and how to know who has one. There were multiple references today to you having 5 CPAs provide letters of recommendation. So just my clarifying question, when I refer back to the materials on page 26 and 27, is that 2 of the letters are not signed from a CPA. So my just question is, were the 2 letters on those pages from individuals that were CPAs on the date that they signed them? And if I'm allowed to reference it, just because I know there's a lot of papers, that would be Angel Lang, pardon my pronunciation, and Yu Song. Thank you.
Yeah, that's only 3 CPAs in my reference letter. Only those 3. The one you talked to about Yue Song and Angel Liang, they are not CPAs.
Okay.
Yeah, that was actually my mistake. I was the one who actually said there were 5 CPAs. That was my mistake. It's actually 3 CPAs and 2 tax associates. I apologize.
Thank you for clarifying the record. I appreciate that. I have no more questions.
Thank you.
Michael Savoy,
Thank you. Can you please clarify, because I didn't understand before, who you're presently working for?
No, I'm sorry, I can't hear you that clear. Can you say it again?
Yes, who are you working for right now?
I'm working for Pelican Products, Inc.
In the
It's a
capacity of a
corporation.
So is that private industry, not public accounting, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And if you were to get your license back, would you be seeking a job again with a public accounting firm?
It depends, but it's not like impossible.
What, due to the pandemic?
Yes, and also, you know, I'm having a baby. It's gonna due in this June. So for now, I'm just focused on my family. So yeah, even because the public firm, you have like a heavy, you know, the workload every day. So I'm trying to maybe this half year and to take care of my baby first, and after that, so next year I'll start thinking about it.
And are you primarily doing, if you in public accounting, were you primarily doing tax work?
Yes.
No more questions?
And I'm sorry, this is Judge Van Rooyen. I just want the record to be clear. Could you spell the name of that employer that you're working for currently, just so the court reporter has it?
Pelican Products, Inc. It's PELICAN PRODUCTSINC.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chen. And Ms. Reed, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow. Please go ahead.
Mark Silverman,
No questions.
Yin Tu,
No question.
and Nancy Corrigan. No questions. And all the members have been polled.
Please excuse me, this is Deirdre Robinson. I have not been polled.
My apologies, Ms. Robinson. Did you have any comments or questions?
If I could, please, at this time, and no apologies necessary. May I begin?
You may, ma'am, certainly.
Thank you so much. I just had questions of clarification, and you've helped me with some. I want to be sure that I understand that you went to work for Kozernik, and that was January 7th, 2019. Did I get that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you ended employment with Mr. Ng in 2018. Is that the reason that you went the following month to, or around thereabouts, to the new employer?
Yes.
Was it at that time in 2018 that you were aware of the fact that he had submitted a signature that was not appropriate for your successful attainment of your license?
No.
At what
I don't
point?
know at that time.
Okay. And then at some point there was a hearing on May 2nd, I believe. Was that the time that you became aware of the fact that Mr. Ng did not have a license, and therefore would have caused some fallback on your potential licensing as well?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then from May 2nd, can you describe to me the actions that you took once you became aware of that error? How did you proceed at that point?
How do I what? Sorry.
I'm trying to figure out what actions you took. I almost am walking this journey with you where I can feel what's going on with you. You just recognized that the person that you trusted when you came here to the U.S. had falsified some information that caused some problems with your licensing. And I'm wondering, at that point, once you became aware of that, which was May 2nd, 2019, what steps or actions did you take that pertain to that piece of information that you had received? What did you do?
So after that hearing, like I learned that he wasn't a CPA anymore. So I get back home and I followed what the board people told me how to check the people's status on the website. So I checked and I saw he's not a CPA anymore. And I questioned him, and then he even started asked me to lie to the board. He's trying to ask me to say, oh, I actually work for that person who signed my form, and it will make me look better and it will help all the case. I'm like, no, I wouldn't lie to the board. And then he said sorry to this or what happened. He kind of admitted what he did, and he said sorry to me.
So when that occurred, you did not notify the board, or did you notify the board of your conversations with Mr. Ng and with your discovery of him not being licensed? Did you bring that to the board's attention, or I'm just trying to figure out what you did in your defense before this hearing, before petitioning the board at this time?
I don't get your question.
Once you found out that occurred, it was at a board hearing. Was that your hearing in regards to your license?
Yes.
Okay. And so you had been notified at that time that there were problems with your license because of the calculation of hours. Is that correct?
Yes.
If I understand you correctly.
I have no idea what's going on.
Okay. So on May 2nd, you find out, and at this point in time, you're no longer working. You're working for Konzernik. And so that's when you contacted Mr. Ng to find out what was going on, and we move forward. Did you acknowledge to the board at any time that you had discovered what was going on and the problems that you had? I'm trying to figure out at what point did you bring your discovery to the board?
You mean to Konzernik or to CBA board?
CBA board, please.
After the hearing, I didn't contact the board. It's like I've been following what the board asked me to do. But after hearing, I contacted Wing to NG to confront him with what's going on for this whole thing happened.
Okay, so you never at that time told the board of what you had discovered. Or, one of the other questions, and I'm going to piggyback with this, you mentioned that, and maybe I got this wrong, that there may be a check where Mr. Ng was signing his name as CPA, that you had actual checks from him. Was that included in the packet of evidence that we received? Is that what I'm to understand?
I don't remember, but what you are saying, are you saying in the hearing, like on the May 2nd, I have to know what's going on?
Yeah. Am I asking what you did after May 2nd? Is that your question to me? That's the question I'm asking. What did you do to notify the board once you figured out what was going on with your license? Once you had spoken with Mr. Ng after May 2nd, he asked you to lie. You said, no, I'm not going to lie. Did you, at what point or at any point, did you go back to the Board of Accountancy with the information that you had obtained?
If we could, Your Honor, can I just briefly speak to my client just to maybe clarify off the record as to what's being requested? Because I know it's been asked several different ways, and I just don't think my client's understanding it.
That may be the case, but I do want you to explain it on the record because I want the testimony to be heard. So if you're just clarifying the question, that's okay. But let's do it on the record, please.
Okay, that's fine. So Ms. Chen, what she's asking is, May 2nd, 2019, you are the subject of this investigative hearing, and then she's asking what happened after, and were all these documents provided to the board during that accusation proceeding? That's what I think she's asking.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, but I can remember what happened after. It's like I've been noticed by the board saying I'm gonna have continuous hearing for my case. So I follow what board told me to do to prepare the hearing and tell the board what's going on my case.
So with what she's saying to me, and help me if I'm right or wrong, I want to be correct on this, is she saying that she never notified the board of her conversation with Mr. Ng once she found out that he wasn't licensed? And once he had asked her to lie for him, she never got back with the Board of Accountancy, just simply followed their instructions so they didn't have access to that bit of information?
Are you asking, this is Seth Weinstein, are you asking me or Ms. Chen? Sorry, wasn't
Whoever might be able to answer, and I apologize for asking such a complicated question.
No,
But it
okay,
is
so
resonant.
I think I can shed some light on this. So May 2nd, 2019, there's an investigative hearing. After the investigative hearing, there was an interim suspension order filed, and Ms. Chen agreed to the interim suspension order, and then an accusation was quickly filed after that. And during that process, the Deputy Attorney General was provided all of that information through the accusation process, the pay stubs, all the information about Wing 2 NG. And I never followed up with this because, of course, he was not my client, Mr. NG. But I was informed by the Deputy Attorney General that there was some criminal prosecution of him that was perhaps pending, not just in relation to Ms. Chen, you know, him or acting as a CPA without a license as to Ms. Chen, but other things as well. I have no idea what happened after that, but all of that documentation regarding the pay stubs, the business cards, all of that had been provided to the Deputy Attorney General because this happened very, very, very rapidly. The investigative hearing was in May, and then the accusation was filed quickly thereafter. And prior to that, there was the interim suspension order. And then I believe it was sometime either in August or September that Ms. Chen signed the surrender document. So this all happened in a very, very rapid succession. But the Deputy Attorney General, it was Elise Davidson, was provided all of that information through me because at that point it was a legal proceeding. So, you know, once Ms. Chen got an attorney, it had to be handled by an attorney, and that was Elise Davidson on behalf of the board. But she did receive all of that.
I appreciate that. And was the information that she obtained to and provided to the board through the accusation also included anything dealing with ACR, any action taken against ACR?
To my knowledge, that individual's license was not impacted by this proceeding. I don't know what the situation is with that individual's licensure now or then, but this accusation proceeding was only against Ms. Chen. So this accusation was filed as to Ms. Chen. So I don't know what happened with that other individual. I don't know what happened with Wing 2 NG. We were not privy to that. We were only privy to the information as it pertained to Ms. Chen. Now, as to the Attorney General's office, I have no idea what they did or didn't do beyond that.
Thank you so much. You've clarified the muddy waters for me. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, any other questions, Ms. Robinson? I just want to make sure you were done.
No, sir, not at this time.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Weinstein. I know that wasn't unusual. Normally, it's not counsel answering the question, but I think it was very helpful just understanding the procedural, how things went down. And I think that really addressed Ms. Robinson's question. So thank you so much. All right, then I believe we covered all of the board members, correct, Ms. Reed?
That's correct. And I'll turn it back over to President Corrigan for any follow-up.
All right,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, thank you. Nancy Corrigan here. So just a final, if there are any further questions based on the previously asked and answered questions from board members, then please raise your hand at this time to be called upon. And I'm okay, Ms. Melina Lopez.
Yes, thank you. One final question, Ms. Wen. Why did you leave your employment at Wing 2 Ng in December 2018?
Because I found another job at Conresnick. I got the offer from them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any further questions, follow-up questions? Seeing that there are none, I turn it back over to you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And so that just brings us to closing remarks. And so both the Attorney General and Petitioner's Counsel will have an opportunity to do that. I'll turn to you, Mr. Durkar, if you would like to make any closing remarks, closing argument, please.
Yes, I just want to make sure that I can be heard.
I can hear you very clearly. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Some things that stand out to the people in terms of public protection here is that she said that if faced with an ethical dilemma or a potentially unethical situation in the future, that her recourse would be to notify the board. However, given the broad variety of situations that a CPA can face, a person ought to have more coping mechanisms to deal with ethical challenges than that. Perhaps this is something that's a little hard to gauge because of the language barrier, but given her past behavior, it does give concern about whether she has developed the sophistication needed to adeptly handle the sort of ethical dilemmas that can come up. And then as far as rehabilitation goes, I'm not seeing any concrete steps here. The only rehabilitation really is the discipline itself. And the question then is whether that was enough to wake her up to the need to be ethical and to exercise good judgment. And the final thing that I would note is that the passage of time can be helpful. And in this situation, not a lot of time has passed since the misconduct and not very much time since the revocation. But that concludes my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Durkar. And then Mr. Weinstein, do you have any concluding remarks on behalf of your client?
I do, Your Honor.
Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, as I made clear in my opening remarks, Ms. Chen stands before the California Board of Accountancy requesting the reinstatement of her certified public accountant license under any terms and conditions deemed necessary by the California Board of Accountancy. Now, Ms. Chen is from China, which, as we all know, has a completely different not only legal system but social system as well. She moved here to the United States to better her life and increase her education, which she did. And she's introduced to an individual named Wing Tu NG. They share a similar background. He was once an immigrant from China, and he took her under her wing and said, "Yeah, I'll show you how to, be a certified public accountant, and I'll certify your work hours when that time comes." She had no reason to doubt him. She was introduced by a friend. She worked at his office. Everybody believed he was a CPA. Even to this day, if you Google his name, it still shows that he's a CPA in the state of California. She didn't know to go on the board's website and look him up because every indication on her pay stubs, on his business cards, how he introduced himself to customers in the community was that he was a certified public accountant. It's similar to going to a doctor. Most people don't look on the medical board or the osteopathic medical board's website to see if the person is actually a licensed doctor. And unfortunately, people just don't know to do that. Even in the industry, they don't know to do that. And Ms. Chen worked there for 3 years. At no point in time was she ever given any indication that he was not a licensed certified public accountant. So when it comes time for her certificate of general experience to be submitted to the board, she thought that Mr. NG was, in fact, telling her what she needed to do. Hey, I'll get it done is what he told her. He repeatedly told her that. And she knew that he was a person that often waited to the last minute to do things. She kept pressing him. And he finally told her, hey, you're going to have this. You're going to have this fairly soon. And then he told her that here it is. And she looks at it and she sees the name of this other person. She questions him. He says, oh, that's my partner. Well, she had no reason to doubt him. Both culturally and on an employer-employee relationship, she had no reason to think that he was lying. And then he said, just mail it out. She didn't know that she wasn't supposed to do that. She didn't know that she was supposed to question, the name more thoroughly. And, Ms. Chen did commit a number of missteps by not verifying all this information and by being so naive and being so negligent, but this was not intentional misconduct. And she went to the board's investigative hearing on May 2nd, 2019, when she learned about all this information, and she told the honest truth. Now, when she confronted Mr. NG about it after that hearing, he told her to lie to the board. And then when she said she wouldn't do that, showing that she is in fact an ethical person, he told her sorry. All of the documentation regarding her relationship with Mr. NG was submitted to the board through the accusation process. As I mentioned, that process was done very quickly from the time of that hearing to the time of the suspension, to the time of the accusation, to the time that the license was surrendered. And ultimately, that license was surrendered because Ms. Chen knew she did not, at that point, she knew she did not have the actual experience necessary. She didn't have the qualifying hours because Mr. NG was not qualified to provide it, and the other individual had not consented to Mr. NG using her information to provide it. So Ms. Chen was already working at Cohn-Resnick, essentially decided to start from scratch. She told Cohn-Resnick about the situation. They understood. They certified her qualifying hours. By that point, she was no longer working there, but Ms. Chen did have the requisite number of hours. She's taken a considerable amount of continuing education since this debacle, 71 hours, 53 of which were incurred subsequent to her license being surrendered and revoked. She has 5 letters from people in the accounting industry. 3 are CPAs, 2 are not. They're all aware of the situation that occurred. She knows, what happened here was completely wrong. And she's taken full responsibility for the fact that what happened here was completely wrong. She should have done her due diligence. She should have been much more on top of, what was going on there. And unfortunately, she wasn't. She was naive. She had recently immigrated here. She's much sharper in terms of, how to navigate these situations. And in response to Mr. Durkar's question, where she said she would notify the board, obviously that's a very broad question, but the question itself was very broad because there's so many different ethical issues that can arise. There's not a one-size-fits-all answer, but I think what Ms. Chen was referring to, if there's another situation with somebody claiming to be a licensed certified public accountant, and, they represent themselves in a certain way, and Ms. Chen knows to look them up on the board's website, and if there's a problem, she'll notify the board. I think that's where Ms. Chen's response was headed, that she would notify the board in that situation if there was a problem with somebody, a colleague or a like-minded professional that was claiming to be a CPA or was a CPA. This has definitely been a learning experience for her. She has matured greatly from it. It's unfortunate that it occurred. It should never have occurred, but it did. And she's taken responsibility for it. And in terms of the rehabilitation, the passage of time, she is allowed to apply for a petition for reinstatement. The admission that she made in the accusation proceeding that led to the stipulated surrender was that she did not have enough qualifying hours, which is completely true. She did not contest that her license was secured by misrepresentation and deceit and a willful violation. It was, which she later learned. But this is a different situation than somebody conspiring with somebody to falsify hours. She was not aware of it, and that's not an excuse for it, but there is a difference between negligence and intent. This was a situation born out of negligence. And Ms. Chen is capable at this point of exercising the duties, functions, and qualifications of a certified public accountant. And if the board believes that, there needs to be restrictions placed, Ms. Chen indicated she is absolutely open to any terms and conditions that the board deems necessary in order for Ms. Chen to return to the practice of certified public accounting and obtain that certified public accountant license. So with that, Respectfully to the board, we would ask that the board grant this petition for reinstatement under any terms and conditions deemed necessary by the board. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weinstein, and thank you very much, Ms. Chen, for your time today and testimony. Thank you, Mr. Durkar. At this time, this concludes this particular petition hearing. The record is closed. The case is submitted for decision, and we are off the record in this matter. I turn it back to you, Madam President, to proceed as you wish.
Should we disconnect both Ms. Chen and myself?
From my perspective, you are done, so you are welcome to leave, but you're also welcome as any member of the public to keep listening. Mr. Durkar, you have your hand up. I'm sorry, did you have a comment?
I was just concerned for Mr. Sangeet if he needs some spellings from all of that testimony, if he might have access to Mr. Weinstein and Ms. Chen.
Thank you, Mr. Durkar. That's a very good point. And also, Mr. Sangeet, I need the end time and page count for the court reporter form whenever you're ready.
Very good. I'll first go with Mr. Weinstein. Sir, if I can please have your email address for any spellings and anything else, if a transcript is ordered, obviously. Go ahead, please. This is a reporter, Mr. Weinstein. I can't hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Has Mr. Weinstein left?
That's fine, Your Honor. I've got his first and last name, and if I need to track him down, I'll take care of it later on.
Thank you, Mr. Sangeet. My apologies. I was my oversight. I didn't think about the spelling. So if you need help tracking any spelling down, you can also contact OAH, and we'll try and work with you to get it resolved. Okay.
Very good. Thank you. I will go ahead and do the stop time at 2:55 p.m.
All right.
With a page count of 49 pages.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sangeet. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, as soon as we are ready to proceed with the next matter, please let me know and we can do that by starting with a roll call.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I usually defer to you. I don't know if you want a break or not. I don't need a break. It's totally up to you. From my perspective, I'm ready to proceed whenever you are.
Very good. Thank you. Then I think that we'll go ahead and do that and try to get through. So with agenda item 5B, Amit Kabani, CPA, license number 58074, Kabani and Company, Inc., license number COR 4710. Ms. Reed, Board Relations Analyst, will please now conduct a roll call and report back as to whether we have a quorum. Carrie Ann Farrell Hines.
Present.
Dan Jacobson.
Here.
Soshi Leon.
Here.
Luz Molina Lopez.
Present.
Dee Dee Owens.
Present.
Ariel Pay. Deirdre Robinson.
Present.
Katrina Salazar.
Sorry, present.
Michael Savoy.
Present.
Mark Silverman.
Present.
Yin Tu.
Present.
And Nancy Corrigan. Present. And we have a quorum. Thank you. And my understanding is that we do not have any members that need to recuse themselves. And therefore, Your Honor, we may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And just, Mr. Sangeet, just to make sure we are on the record. We are on the record before the California Board of Accountancy. We're reviewing our next petition on the agenda this afternoon. That is the petition for reinstatement of surrendered certificates filed by Hamid Kabani. That's CPA number 58074, as well as Kabani and Company, Inc. That is COR 4710. And my name is Wim van Rooyen. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings for the state of California, and I've been assigned to preside over this matter today. Today is March 25th, 2021. The hearing was noticed for 1:30 p.m. It's almost 3 o'clock on the dot. We are conducting this matter via WebEx conference due to the COVID-19 public health crisis and the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20 dated March 17th, 2020. I'll let the record reflect that we have taken a roll call of the board members and that we do have a quorum of the board present to hear the petition today. With that said, may I please have formal appearances, starting with the Attorney General, please.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Ted Durkar, Supervising Deputy Attorney General, and I'm appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California on the petition for reinstatement by Hamid Kabani and Kabani and Company, pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 5115 and Government Code Section 11522. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Durkar. And then on behalf of the petitioner.
This is a reporter. I believe you're on mute, ma'am.
My apologies. I thought I unmuted. I must have double clicked. So much for my best intentions. Thank you for being patient, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Stephanie Perkins of Perkins Law Group, appearing on behalf of petitioners Hamid Kabani and Company, Incorporated.
Good afternoon to you, Ms. Perkins, and you won't believe how often that happens to myself during hearings, so no need to apologize. First of all, and welcome to you, Mr. Kabani. Is your client with you in the room there, or it's appearing separately? I'm just looking.
He is not, Your Honor. He is in a separate facility, a separate location, and he is here with us.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Kabani. Can you hear me?
This is a reporter. I cannot hear anything.
I cannot hear anything, and I don't see his
Can
image.
you hear me now?
Yes, Mr. Kabani. Yes, we can hear you perfectly fine. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure you can hear us, correct?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to turn it over to Mr. Durkar to provide us with a procedural history of the case, a disciplinary history, and then also to introduce the petition packet. And then after that, Ms. Perkins, I'll give you an opportunity to provide an opening statement, and if there's any supplemental documents to discuss those. All right, Mr. Durkar, you're up first. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as exhibit number 1, the original petition packet with accompanying documents. The board members and petitioners have been provided with a copy of this same exhibit. The documents total 126 pages, and they have been sequentially marked starting with HK-PET-001. The notice of hearing for proceeding today, that is at pages 124 to 125. So unless there is any objection to be heard, I would ask that this Exhibit 1 be moved into evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Perkins, to Exhibit 1?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. Then Exhibit 1, the entire petition packet is admitted.
I'd now like to offer a summary of this case and go over the materials in that packet. Hamid Kabani received his CPA certificate number 58074 in 1991. That would be at page 120 of your packet. His firm, Kabani and Company, received its Certified Public Accountancy Corporation Certificate number 4710 in 1999. The accusation against petitioners, that begins at page 58 of the packet. It was filed in February 2019, and it alleged that the certificates of Mr. Kabani and Company were subject to discipline by this board because they had been disciplined by the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board and had lost their right to practice before the PCAOB.
This is a court
I'm going to be
reporter.
referring to that public company.
I'm sorry, let's stop there, Mr. Durkar. What is the concern, Mr. Court Reporter?
This is a court reporter. I'm going to take us off the record.
Sure, go ahead.
There seems to be quite a bit of feedback. Ms. Perkins, are you on mute?
I'm not on mute at the moment, but does it sound like it's coming from me? I can mute.
Do you have a speaker right in front of your microphone?
I do not. I have a microphone that's a standalone microphone. The speaker's quite a distance away. It's probably a foot or more away.
Okay.
Is it giving you feedback?
I apologize. It may not be you, but I was hearing a bit of feedback from somewhere while Mr. Durkar was speaking.
I was as well, Mr. Sangeet. It's not just you. So it sounds better now, whoever has changed something. Does it sound better to you?
I apologize for interrupting. This is the moderator, Stephanie Perkins. It is your microphone, and I have muted. If you can please keep it muted from your end and unmute it whenever you need to speak.
Okay. Does that sound any better? I moved it a little further away, by the way, Your Honor, or anyone, Madam Moderator.
I'm not hearing it right now. Sorry, Mr.
Okay,
Sangeet.
my apologies if I was the cause. I will mute.
That's fine. The issue, it just may happen when someone else speaks. It looks like there was just a little bit of feedback, but as long as you're on mute, I think we'll be okay. Thank you very much.
All right. No, thank you for bringing that to our attention. So what we're going to do is we'll go back on the record now, and then Ms. Perkins, if you can just back up just a little bit before, make sure we cover all the ground you need on the record. All right. All right. We are back on the record. We were just resolving some technical issues. There was some feedback with the audio. Ms. Perkins, we interrupted you. Please resume with your opening remarks.
Actually, Your Honor, I believe it was Mr. Durkar that was speaking.
Oh, my apologies. Yes, Mr. Durkar. Sorry. Thank you so much, Mr. Durkar. Go ahead.
Yes. I believe I was just in the process of explaining that I'll be referring to the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board as the PCAOB. Now, the accusation that was filed with the board, it detailed that in January 2015, the PCAOB issued an order that permanently revoked Kobani and Company's registration with the PCAOB and permanently barred Mr. Kobani from being an associated person of a registered public accounting firm and ordered Mr. Kobani to pay a $100,000 fine. And I'll just explain for those who are not familiar with it what registration is, what was revoked there. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act requires public accounting firms to register with the PCAOB to prepare or issue an audit report for a U.S. public company or a broker-dealer, or to play a substantial role in such audits. Getting back to the accusation noted that in 2017, the SEC issued an order sustaining disciplinary action taken by the PCAOB, meaning that the SEC reviewed PCAOB's order. And then in 2018, the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, federal court, denied the petition by Mr. Kobani and Kobani and Company, which challenged the SEC order, which had sustained the PCAOB order. So there were 3 levels here, the PCAOB order, and then 2 levels of review at the SEC and at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals denied that petition by the petitioners who are here before us today, Mr. Kobani and Company. The accusation explained some of the circumstances. It briefly explained that in or about 2007, Kobani and Company did audits for 3 Delaware corporations that are public companies. The next year, in June 2008, PCAOB notified Mr. Kobani that it would be inspecting Kobani and Company's audit records for these 3 Delaware corporations. Kobani and Company found that the audit files had the kind of problems that could result in deficiency findings by the PCAOB. Kibani and Company updated the audit files to correct the deficiencies. And PCAOB Accounting Standard Number 3 allows information to be added to audit work papers after the fact, but only if the person adding the information notes his or her name, the date of the addition, and the reason for the addition. No information in audit work papers on a completed audit can be altered or deleted. Kibani and Company did not make notations about the changes in the audit work papers, the changes that it made in 2008 in anticipation of the inspection. When PCAOB staff performed the inspection in October 2008, PCAOB inspectors were not informed that the audit files had been altered. In 2009, a former Kibani and Company employee filed a complaint about this with the PCAOB. Now, turning back to events after the board's accusation was filed, in October 2019, Mr. Kibani and Kibani and Company entered into a stipulated surrender agreement, which begins at page 50 of your packet, if you wish to look at it. Both parties, Mr. Kibani and Company, admitted all of the charges and allegations in the accusation. They agreed to surrender their certificates and that the surrender would constitute the imposition of discipline. They agreed that any future bid for licensing would be heard as a petition for reinstatement, and that is how we are proceeding today. They agreed that if they are ever reinstated, they will be jointly and severally liable for $4,267 of board costs to be paid prior to reinstatement. The board's order that adopted this stipulation is at page 49 of the packet. That order became effective on January 6, 2020. And then the three decisions that are previously referenced by the PCAOB, the SEC, and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, those are all in your packet. They are final decisions that stand as the law of this case with respect to the underlying misconduct by Mr. Kibani. Starting at page 65, you have the 2015 order of the PCAOB that imposed the discipline and the $100,000 fine. The PCAOB had instituted disciplinary action in 2012. That's when the disciplinary proceeding started. The respondents in that case included not only Mr. Kibani and Company, but three other CPAs as well. Mr. Kibani's partner, Mr. Deutschman, plus another CPA at the firm, Mr. Kahn. There was an evidentiary hearing in the PCAOB disciplinary action, and the hearing officer issued a decision in April 2014, which found that all the respondents participated in a widespread and resource-intensive effort over several weeks in 2008 to alter documents in the audit files of three issuers in an attempt to deceive the PCAOB inspectors in an upcoming inspection. The decision found that Mr. Kibani and his partner, Mr. Deutschman's misconduct was intentional and knowing. It was determined that the respondents violated PCAOB Rule 4006, which requires cooperation with board inspectors, and Rule 3100, which requires compliance with audit standards. The auditing standard that they did not comply with was number 3. They violated standard number 3 by altering and adding to the work papers in the three public company audit files after the document completion deadlines, and they did not inform the PCAOB of any of the changes. The decision, the PCAOB decision, or and rather what I'm referring to is the hearing officer's decision, revoked the firm's registration, permanently barred Mr. Cabani from associating with a registered public accounting firm, and ordered him to pay a $100,000 penalty. The penalties on Mr. Deutschman and Mr. Kahn were $35,000 and $20,000 respectively. All four respondents were also censured. Mr. Cabani, the firm, and Mr. Deutschman petitioned for the PCAOB to review the administrative decision, and the PCAOB order is in fact the one that you have. It starts at page 65 in your packet, and it adopted and agreed with the hearing officer's initial decision. The PCAOB conducted its review of the hearing officer's proposed decision on a de novo basis, meaning it took a fresh look at the evidence. I'll direct your attention right now to some key parts of the order, and I'm going to refer to the sequential page numbers that are on the packet. At page 68, near the bottom of the page, in the next to the last paragraph, the last couple of sentences in that paragraph say that the evidence demonstrates a course of misconduct, including intentionally resetting computer clocks to make documents appear to have been finalized before operative deadlines. That is troubling on its face. But the changing, conflicting, and patently incredible explanations for these document alterations offered by respondents throughout this proceeding accentuate the gravity of the misconduct and underscore how meritless respondents' arguments to the contrary now are. And then at page 69, the PCAOB order notes that Mr. Cabani and Mr. Deutschman were Cabani and Company's only two partners, and that Mr. Cabani was the engagement partner on all three audits that were inspected by PCAOB in 2008. At page 70, it says that the audit files were presented to PCAOB for inspection in a content and fashion that was materially different from the actual final audit files. For example, a management representation letter that was presented to the PCAOB had an altered date and substantially different representations. And there were also changes to schedules or trial balances where the real final audit files showed that more work needed to be done, that things were incomplete. But that isn't how it was presented to the PCAOB. Then straddling pages 70 to 71, there is information about the forensics examination that was done by PCAOB staff of the electronic audit files. And that forensic examination revealed many more post-deadline changes in the audit files. The metadata had been modified, including resetting computers' internal clocks to try to make it look like the sign-off dates for edits were before the audit completion deadlines. And metadata identified Mr. Cabani as a computer user who had made such changes. At page 71, I direct your attention to the last sentence in section 2, which says, Cabani, Deutschman, and Kahn participated in the scheme to alter the work papers and provide the altered work papers to the inspectors. Starting at page 72, the order examines and refutes defenses that were raised about the metadata in violation of PCAOB Accounting Standard Number 3. The order states, they, referring to the petitioners before us today, have offered a number of different explanations for why the metadata evidence did not necessarily demonstrate intentional misconduct. Their arguments ranged from conflicting to unsupported to implausible. At pages 73 to 74, the order examines credibility issues. PCAOB adopted the hearing officer's findings about credibility. With regard to the whistleblower, Mr. Saeed, it was found that there were concerns about his conduct and motives, but nevertheless found he was credible on the major aspects of his testimony. Also, the order notes that Mr. Saeed took a risk in making his complaint and that his testimony was consistent. On the other hand, the order notes that respondents were often not credible on issues pertaining to work paper alterations, including their claim not to recall important events, inconsistencies between their investigative and hearing testimonies, and wholesale attempts to distance themselves from the evidence against them. And at page 75 of the order, the PCAOB addressed a polygraph test report that was submitted by Mr. Khabani. And this report purported to establish that he lacked knowledge of the wrongdoing. So the report indicates that Mr. Khabani was asked certain questions while connected to a polygraph machine, often known as a lie detector, and that he passed when he passed the test when he denied having knowledge of the alterations made to the audit files. The report, this polygraph detector report that Mr. Khabani had submitted was rejected because he only obtained it after he received the hearing officer's unfavorable decision, and because legal authorities doubt the reliability and discourage the admission of polygraph tests in legal proceedings. The decision of the PCAOB upheld all the sanctions that had been recommended by the hearing officer. The rationale is provided at page 83, where it says, misconduct is especially troubling and deserving of serious sanctions where, as here, respondents went to considerable lengths to conceal their actions and might have been successful in deceiving the board if Saeed had not reported his concerns. Starting at page 87, there is a 2017 opinion by the SEC. Yes, that's page 87 of your packet. That's where the SEC opinion starts. So as I said, Khabani and Company, Mr. Khabani and his partner appealed that PCAOB order to the SEC. The SEC also performed de novo review of the record from the PCAOB administrative proceeding. The SEC sustained the violation finding reached by the PCAOB and all of the discipline. It said, we agree with the PCAOB that the hearing officer's findings are well supported by the evidence in the records and the law. And then I'd like to direct your attention to page 88 of the packet, the introduction to the SEC's opinion, where it says that we base our findings on our independent review of the record. That record shows that applicants added or falsified hundreds of audit documents, intentionally reset internal computer clocks to conceal that the alterations were made before applicable deadlines, and backdated their signatures on relevant work papers. We agree with the PCAOB that this evidence demonstrates a course of misconduct that is troubling on its face, and that applicants' changing, conflicting, and patently unbelievable testimony accentuates the gravity of the misconduct. As the PCAOB held, this misconduct is especially troubling and deserving of serious sanctions because applicants went to considerable lengths to conceal their actions. Substantial evidence thus establishes that applicants intentionally and knowingly violated the PCAOB's rules, and that the PCAOB's imposition of sanctions for those violations was an appropriate remedy. At page 96, the SEC again addressed the issue of credibility of the persons who testified and found that Saeed, the whistleblower's testimony, was credible, and Mr. Khabani's was not. Among the incredible testimony noted by the SEC was Mr. Khabani's claim that he did not notice emails sent to him about PCAOB cleanup, and his claim that he had no idea any PCAOB cleanup was occurring in the 3 audit files. At page 97, the SEC also cited law that supports rejection of the polygraph test submitted by Mr. Khabani. At page 101, the SEC examined the sanctions issued by the PCAOB and noted that the SEC itself had authority to change, reduce, or cancel the sanctions, and the standard that they should consider the nature of the violation and should consider any mitigating factors. The SEC sustained all the sanctions because the SEC found that the parties engaged in an egregious attempt to deceive the PCAOB and might have succeeded if Mr. Saeed had not blown the whistle. Then further on in the paragraph straddling pages 101 to 102, there was a significant findings about Mr. Khabani himself. There it says, Khabani admitted that he directed staff to review Khabani and Company's audit files for errors after the PCAOB notified him about its plan to inspect Khabani and Company's records. Although Khabani claims this review was for internal quality control purposes, we do not find that contention credible. To the contrary, the record shows that Khabani devised and directed Khabani and Company's PCAOB cleanup. Skipping ahead just by about one sentence, and then says, Khabani then personally produced the issuer A, B, and C audit files. Those are the 3 Delaware corporations at issue here. The audit files to the PCAOB inspectors without disclosing what he knew to be alterations and additions to those files. Khabani's conduct resulted in intentional and knowing violations of PCAOB rules. Khabani's mental state is also attributable to Khabani and Company because Khabani was the sole shareholder and the head of the firm. At pages 103 to 104, there are additional significant findings about Mr. Khabani. Towards, in the second half of page 103, it says, as senior management, Khabani and Deutschman had a heightened responsibility to ensure that they and the firm complied with PCAOB's inspections and document requirements. Instead, Khabani concocted a scheme which he and Deutschman directed to hide Khabani and Company's documentation failures from the PCAOB. Then at the bottom of the page, going on to the next page, it says, applicants' misconduct also involved a high degree of scienter. They were experienced auditors who knowingly, intentionally, and recklessly subverted basic regulatory standards, thus demonstrating an extreme disregard for regulatory authority over a prolonged period, allowing Khabani and Company to remain registered and Khabani, Deutschman, and Kahn to remain associated persons would give them future opportunities to undermine the PCAOB's regulatory processes. Turning now to that Ninth Circuit Federal Court of Appeal decision, the Ninth Circuit's memorandum of decision on the petition by Mr. Khabani, Khabani and Company, Mr. Kahn, and Mr. Deutschman, that starts at page 115 of your packet. This decision was issued in August 2018, so the saga went on for quite a long period of time. That decision was reached by a panel of 3 justices. They performed de novo review as well, meaning that they also took a fresh look at the evidence and reached their own decision. The panel denied the petition by the petitioners who are before us today, thereby sustaining the discipline imposed by the PCAOB and sustain the factual findings by the SEC, including the SEC's findings that petitioner had acted with scienter. Scienter means knowledge of wrongdoing. I direct your attention to page 116 of the packet, and I'll just read paragraph 1, where the justices held that substantial evidence supports the SEC's findings that petitioners violated PCAOB accounting standard number 3 with the requisite scienter. The indications of an attempted cover-up, the backdated sign-off dates, the altered metadata, and petitioner's failure during the inspection to disclose the changes made after the documentation completion deadlines all strongly support an inference of knowledge and intent. Next, I'd like to provide you with an inventory of the documents provided by petitioners. And the petition by Mr. Cabani and Cabani and Company begins at page 9 of your packet. It defers all the narrative answers for questions 9 through 11 to the attached letter from Mr. Cabani's counsel, Stephanie Perkins, and that letter begins at page 18. The letter says that Mr. Cabani has made efforts to rehabilitate himself. At page 19, it says that Mr. Cabani is extremely remorseful for his actions and leadership failure that led to the PCAOB order and the surrender of his license, and that he accepts complete responsibility for his conduct. The letter goes on to say that Mr. Cabani expected his employees to follow PCAOB rules if they made any changes to the audit work papers. It claims that he delegated the process to employees who were unqualified to manage the process or who did not care about the rules. It says he was falsely accused of intentional misconduct by a disgruntled former employee, who I believe would be the Mr. Saeed referred to in the decisions that we've already covered. It says that he has not done any audit work since the PCAOB order and has not rendered any CPA services since he surrendered his license. It says he has made payments towards the $100,000 fine, but does not specify the amount of those. It says that he cannot pay the $4,267 owed to the board in one payment, and he has to pay in installments if he is reinstated. Mr. Cabani submitted paperwork showing that he recently completed 40 hours of continuing education, including a 4-hour ethics course. At pages 39 to 41 of your packet, there are 3 reference letters, one from his son and 2 from business owner clients of his, it would appear. At pages 27 to 30 of your packet is the 2014 report from Polygraph Examiners of California, which states that Mr. Cabani passed the lie detector test in which he denied having knowledge of or participation in the modification of audit work papers before the PCAOB inspection back in 2008. I am prepared at this point to ask Mr. Cabani some questions, but I turn it back over to Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Durkar. And before you do that, we're basically following this board's particular procedure. Ms. Perkins will get to make some opening remarks. And then after that, I'll turn it back to you to start questioning of the petitioner. So Ms. Perkins, do you have some opening remarks to make on behalf of your client?
Yes, I do, Your Honor. I'll try to be brief in that I know we've had a long afternoon and all of you are probably tired having been here all day, but I wanted to obviously, again, my name is Stephanie Perkins. And also is the feedback, is it all right, Sir Reporter, or are we feeling, or can you hear all right?
For I don't, Mr. Reporter, well, let me have you answer that. You're the most important person.
This is a reporter. You sound fine. Thank you very much, Ms. Perkins.
Thank you. I just didn't want it to sound garbled and I wanted to be articulate. So Counsel,
And Ms. Perkins, I just want you to know, I understand, I so appreciate your concern, but I don't want you to feel rushed in any way either, so, in your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'd like to again thank the ladies and gentlemen of the board, Judge, Your Honor, thank you. Also to Supervising Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Jakar, and as well as the members of the public and others who are participating or here, including those from enforcement. We're honored to be here on behalf of Mr. Kibani and Kibani and Company, and we thank the board, especially in these trying times when we're all operating under inordinately awkward circumstances, to take the time to hear these petitions for reinstatement, or this petition for reinstatement of these surrendered certificates. And I would like to point out that this petition, excuse me, in particular is made under Business and Professions Code 5051 and B, an associated Business and Professions Code and regulatory authority, following, as counsel pointed out, a stipulated surrender of Kibani and Company and Mr. Kibani's licenses to practice. And as counsel has adequately explained, thoroughly explained, arising out of an adverse PCOB decision wherein their certificates to practice registration were revoked. I would like to point out, just as an aside, that there is a method, although that is not something that Mr. Kibani and Kibani and Company are entertaining at the moment, for that permanent revocation or bar to be lifted. It's not unlike the Board of Accountancy disciplinary measure, where a license is revoked either through stipulation or board decision and order, in that these registrants theoretically could seek reinstatement by the PCAOB down the road. I just wanted to point that out because that is one of the few mechanisms that the PCAOB currently exercises when they're dealing with circumstances such as this, or such as that occurred here. So I would like to point out, to reiterate just slightly, that a few points in that, as counsel pointed out, Mr. Kibani and his firm, we'll refer to it as the firm Kibani and Company, when they entered the stipulated settlement and for surrender, they did not dispute, as counsel I believe has pointed out, the facts, or they did not assert that there was any basis on which they could defend, and agreed that had the board proceeded with the hearing, that the board would have been successful on the outcome, seeking disciplinary measures against the firm and Mr. Kibani individually. Nonetheless, we would also like to point out that, as you know now from the material you've read, and as counsel has summarily provided information here in his opening comments, this is an event that this action occurs, and these petitions, or petition for reinstatement of certificates, is made after events that occurred over a period of years, but beginning roughly 13 years ago, following the notification of a PCAOB inspection. This was at a time when the inspection process was relatively new, and firms were getting their learning the process and trying to understand the relationship between firms as associated persons, and also the relationship and obligation to PCAOB compliance. Under Sarbanes-Oxley specifically. I would like to emphasize, and Mr. Kibani will provide independent comments, and he obviously is open to answering not only Mr. Jakar's questions, but any questions the board may have. But we do not stand here to attempt to, or stand here today in front of you, so to speak, figuratively, of course, to abdicate any responsibility. There is no doubt and no question that this matter arising out of the accounting standards or failure is a complete failure and an ineffective leadership and oversight of an audit engagement, or audit engagements, I should say. There is no doubt, and Mr. Kibani stands here remorsefully, recognizing that had he exercised more due diligence relative to instruction of his team, and specifically oversight of the actions of the whistleblower here, that there may have been a different outcome, in that Mr. Saeed wouldn't have been in a position, as he was within the firm, to orchestrate a concerted effort to falsify, and to counsel's point, scienter, intentionally falsify records. the only concern we have is that although we don't dispute the findings by the SEC and by the PCAOB as confirmed by the Ninth Circuit, that there are some subtleties in those various orders and decisions, including some findings about the lack of, there were some findings and comments regarding the lack of credibility of Mr. Saeed. As counsel pointed out, he was, excuse me, I don't want to misstate counsel, so I want to be careful I say this clearly and fairly, that Mr. Saeed had a motivation, potentially a bias to blow the whistle because he was a disgruntled employee. And we've identified that and set it out in our written submissions. I don't want to go into a lot of detail, essentially to say that he was passed over for partnership in the firm. But again, Mr. Khabani does not state that that's a basis for abdicating his own responsibility here. Had he been more aware and paying closer attention, he would have recognized that his team was engaging in a more concerted effort to modify records inconsistent with PCAOB standards. As Mr. Dakars pointed out, for example, but not by way of limitation, there were for those of you who are auditors or who understand this process, forgive me for being too basic or rudimentary, but Mr. Khabani does not at any time deny that dual dating or properly dating a work paper was required. For example, if the work paper was incomplete or was updated after the date that the work papers were locked down originally, then whoever was preparing that amendment, including the person who would sign off on the work paper, must date it as of the date that the amendments or changes or supplements are made. He doesn't deny that that did not occur here. He doesn't deny that it should have, and he accepts, as I said, responsibility that his team was inadequately supervised by himself and others under his direction, allowing that to happen. I would also like to comment one comment about the metadata, and this is in the record. If counsel would like me to, I could perhaps point to it, but I don't know that the board requires significant belaboring on this point, except to state that the SEC did comment in its actual brief submission to the Ninth Circuit that there was a possibility, or was probable that the metadata was not deliberately altered, that in certain cases that the firm pulled up work papers, which then changed the date of that the records were active, and that may not have been intentional. There were a lot of moving parts here, obviously, and again, Mr. Khabani does not attempt to push this onto Mr. Saeed and say that it was solely his responsibility. Mr. Khabani accepts that responsibility. And I would also like to comment, as counsel has pointed out, that there are several character references that are attached and submitted with our petition for reinstatement of these certificates, both an individual submission on behalf of Mr. Khabani or Mr. Khabani's son, as well as several clients. Mr. Khabani has not, as Mr. Dakar pointed out, practiced in any way, or engaged in any conduct which we construed to be practice of public accounting, and he has essentially carved out a relatively humble existence on very modest means, living off savings and attempting to support his family and to the extent necessary, and to support himself on those means. He'd like to come back to practice under any conditions and terms or restrictions that this board may deem appropriate, if it deems appropriate, to consider reinstatement of his license and or the firm's license to practice. He recognizes emphatically and clearly the importance of ethics and the importance of compliance with Board of Accountancy regulations and applicable professional standards. Again, I will defer to him at some point to address that, because in my experience as a practitioner before this board, on many occasions, it often is best for you to hear directly from your licensee or former licensee regarding their wherewithal to undertake accountancy with the integrity and professional responsibility attendant to this profession. And I think after having discussed this for many hours with Mr. Khabani, although my humble opinion is probably just that, very humble and perhaps not as important, is that he appears very committed and very ready to practice under whatever conditions and restrictions the board may deem appropriate, again, if it were to grant this petition. I probably could go on, but I think that it's probably best to defer to Mr. Dakar, or Deputy Attorney General Dakar, and to the board for questions. And then perhaps if there are areas we feel that is necessary, we can circle back and fill in any blanks if necessary. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. And just for the sake of completion, all the documents you intended to submit in support of the petition has already been admitted, correct? There's nothing else that's out there.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Then with that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Durkar, to start questioning Mr. Kabani. Mr. Kabani, I will have to swear you in before Mr. Durkar starts. So if you could raise your right hand for me and I will swear you in. Do you solemnly state under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
This is a reporter. I cannot hear him.
I also cannot. Let me just make sure. Are you unmuted, sir?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay. Did you hear my? Let me just. Did you hear my administration of the oath?
Yes, I did, and yes, I do.
Thank you very much, sir. You can put your hand down. And now that you're testifying as a witness, can you just spell your full name for us briefly?
Hamid Kabani, HAMID KABANI.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kabani. And if you get asked any question by anyone today and you think it's vague, ambiguous, unclear, just let us know. We can get it rephrased or clarified. If you do answer a question, we will assume you understood the question. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Thank you, Mr. Kabani. All right, Mr. Durkar, your witness.
Good afternoon, Mr. Kabani. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good afternoon. I can hear you very well.
Oh, thank you. How much of the PCAOB's $100,000 fine have you paid?
Okay, so when this fine was imposed, I spoke to SEC because this amount has to be paid to SEC, not directly to PCAOB, that I learned. And I agreed with the person in charge in the collection department at SEC that we will pay an installment of $5,000 per month. I believe roughly half of that amount, $50,000, has already been paid. I have not missed a single payment since that agreement was reached. So every month I just pay them $5,000.
Did you ask the SEC for a written statement on that debt?
Yes, I can do that. Yes, that's not a problem. Yeah.
Okay, but you didn't include it with the materials, did you, with your petition?
No, I did not, but I can easily submit it within a week. I can get a certificate from the in charge at SEC that I am in compliance with their payment plan and I have not missed any of the installment.
The letter from your attorney, Ms. Perkins, it says that you do not dispute the facts of the underlying PCAOB matter. Do you now admit that the PCAOB's findings about your misconduct were correct?
I initially, fought against PCAOB in the hearing, just to get you a little bit idea that when the hearing took place, the original hearing officer was replaced by the Enforcement Division of FINRA attorney who presided over the hearing. And we had initially objected to the internal hearing by a person who was famous for his actions against the accountants. That motion was denied, as you had eloquently initially in your initial statement mentioned all those denial by PCAOB board, as well as SEC. The only hearing we got so far was that hearing. After that, SEC had looked at the document, they denied. Then we went to Ninth Circuit Board. Ninth Circuit Board had actually scheduled a hearing for us. At that time, a case by Supreme Court called Lucia versus United States was announced by the Supreme Court. And immediately after that, Ninth Circuit Board basically canceled the hearing. And and gave the judgment that since it's in the judgment, the package you have submitted, that Mr. Kabani did not mention about the Lucia case of improper hearing officer, therefore that petition is also denied. We went to the Supreme Court, and as probably all of you can feel that that is a pretty costly process. I spent a ton of my saving on that. Supreme Court did not hear us. So now as we stand here, I have accepted everything, whatever has been in the case. I have accepted that we did not perform our job to the way we were supposed to. My firm grew too fast for me, actually. At one time, we were termed as the fastest growing CPA firm in US in 2008, around the same time when this inspection took place. So it was too many clients, around roughly 100 clients, and I was the only engagement managing partner, the equity partner. Then there we had a salaried partner. I had relied on other people to perform the jobs, but I could not properly supervise them. That was my fault. During this 2008 inspection, there were issues with the PPC filing, which we were using for storing the work papers. That's all in the documentation provided to PCOB and SEC, where the publisher of the software instructed my staff how to open it because there were some issues where the files were frozen. There were things going on between Mr. Saeed and our staff. I don't want to go in all this detail because I have accepted the responsibility, whatever happened. They missed to enter the name and sign that these documents were taken from one computer to another computer. As SEC has also mentioned in its verdict that we are not saying that you have added all the document. We are saying that there is a possibility you move from different computer into one computer, these documents. So everything was supposed to be stopped if I had properly supervised it. It's my fault, and I fully accept that.
Well, you say that you take responsibility as a supervisor, but did you yourself intentionally violate PCAOB accounting rule number 3?
It's called AS3. And to be honest with you, in my heart, I did not want to deceive anybody. I may have unintentionally violated the rules because when you have the documents properly documented in the work paper file, or you are supposed to put the name and sign, and that's it. Had my staff put their name and sign on those documents, we would not be talking right now. So although I did not intend to deceive anyone, as myself being in the past quality control partner for international firm and also in qualification committee here, I knew the responsibility, but that was an oversight, that was an honest oversight, and it did take place. So I accept that oversight, and I did accept that it was my fault as overall that these things happen in my firm.
What wrongdoing did you engage in with respect to the 3 public company audit files that were inspected by the PCAOB in 2008?
So the documentations which were added from one computer to the another computer should have been properly documented that these were added on these files from one computer to another computer on this date. And person who did that, like junior staff or Mr. Saeed, whoever had done it, or I or my partner, whoever in the firm had done it, should have put their name that these are the documents we have added, and that would have been fine, but that did not take place.
Now, you were the audit partner on all 3 of these company files, weren't you?
I was. That's for sure, yeah.
You were very heavily involved and very familiar with these files, weren't you?
I was, yes.
Okay. And you're aware that the SEC, the PCAOB, and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals all found that you acted intentionally and orchestrated a scheme to alter the audit files and cover that up from PCAOB inspectors. Do you still reject and dispute those findings?
I do not reject or dispute any of the findings. As I just mentioned, I have accepted the decision. However, I just wanted to explain it to you that there were no malice involved in any of the wrongdoing. It was purely because of too much work at that time, and things got something in such a way that the staff missed to put their name and sign off dates on the documents. But I do agree that these things took place. These were violation of AS3 of PCAOB rules, and that was under my supervision. So there is no question that this did take place.
Okay, so it's undisputed that the standard number 3 was violated, but you still deny the finding of scienter that you had knowledge of the wrongdoing.
Exactly. I do agree that this violation did take place. I did not have any intent to deceive anyone at that time. Neither I have ever in my life. If you see that this was relating to 2008 inspection. Since then, there were 2 more inspections by PCAOB of my firm in 2011 and 2014. And there was one inspection prior to 2008, which was in 2006. And all these 3 inspections were found to be accurate in compliance with PCAOB's standard. Also, just to add, this 2008 inspection where these 3 files were supposed, where there were violation took place for AS3, SCC and PCAOB did not find any wrongdoing in the audit, any deficiency in the audit. They did not require us to re-audit or restate any of the financials because the work paper did exist on different computers, except those documents were added to the work paper file later. That was my guilt.
The letter from your attorney says that you have put in place sufficient safeguards to prevent any occurrences similar to those that gave rise to the stipulated surrender of these licenses. What are those safeguards that you've put in place?
Okay, so since then, it has been extremely humbling experience. I have roughly 40 years of audit experience. My whole life has been on this audit, and I've given my best to serve the community and do the audits. And this incident had brought bad name to me. Since then, I was, as you had mentioned in your opening statement, that I had a permanent bar by the PCAOB and my firm. I have been reviewing other firms' quality control standards and the documentation system. There were few things which I should have done better, and which I will definitely do in the future. One, my firm grew too fast. I started in 1999. You just mentioned that the firm was granted license in 1999. In 2008, my firm was the fastest growing firm in US already by the independent publications. That was mistake. Number 2, I was not proper in hiring the staff who should be able to supervise it properly for me and helping me out in finding any deficiency if I or my staff are doing. So there should have been an independent quality control department where all the files should have gone. So that was a mistake. So in reality, 2 or 3 things I would like to improvise in future. One is that to hire the staff who is knowledgeable and put a system in place where any violation of PCAOB, either intentionally or unintentionally, is caught and reported back to the partner who is in charge of the engagement and the partners committee. And number 2 is that making sure that I can take only I accept only clients which I can properly handle. Accepting too many clients was a major mistake, and things grew out of hand as I realized later.
With would you have any safeguards pertaining to resources for you to make sure that you stay on track and don't make mistakes?
Definitely. I have taken courses which I have submitted, keeping up in the standards, making sure that all the standards are complied with, including the PCAOB standards, including the US GAAP standards, making sure that I understand my responsibility and not committing any error or mistake in the future. This one blame has actually put a bad name on my name, on bad spot on my name, which I had created very hard, brick by brick. I had built my reputation brick by brick, started from a little firm, went to the quality control partner of the whole Western region for an international accounting firm, and then creating my own firm. But this blame has put such a bad impact on my career and my firms and my professional career that I have learned the lesson that make sure that you go according to the books, take the clients you can handle, and make sure that the staffs are properly educated. Make sure that I am properly educated with the new rules and regulations.
I don't know if I understood what you said correctly, but are you saying that your reputation was ruined by the whistleblower, or do you now think that your reputation was ruined by your own misconduct?
No, my own misconduct. I am not blaming anybody here. No, nobody is to be blamed except me.
I'd like to ask you some questions about the reference letters you submitted. Those are at pages 39 to 41 of the packet. In looking at these letters, I noticed that they are all in the same font and they have similar formatting. Can you tell me who prepared these letters?
The individuals who had prepared those letters, they prepared themselves.
Can you explain to me why the font and the format are similar in all three? Is it just a coincidence that all three people had the same style in preparing a letter?
It might be. It might be. You are more than welcome to talk to any of the individuals who have prepared the letter. You can check with them independently what did they use. I can provide their name and number, and you can talk to them.
Counselor, if I may.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. I was muted out. Forgive me. Just to clarify, Mr. Dakar, prior to receiving the letters, obviously, again, our office vets with our client or vetted with our client here who would be in position to provide letters, and we would have given them a template, not the content, but how it might look. In other words, formatting wise. So I can't speak to whether they use the exact font, but it looks very similar to a format that I might have utilized and would have provided to these reference points, these references, in order to provide information to the board for this purpose.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. All right. Then I wanted to ask you, Mr. Kabani, some questions about that polygraph report at pages 27 to 30 of the packet.
Sure.
Did you get the polygraph testing done after you received the PCAOB's unfavorable initial decision?
That's correct.
And were you the one who paid for the polygraph test?
Yes, that's correct.
I just want to make sure that we captured all of your testimony. You spoke to some degree about this, but can you tell us anything else about steps that you have taken to rehabilitate yourself since those legal challenges to the PCAOB order failed in the last few years? What have you done?
Yeah, it has taken a toll on me financially as well as emotionally. Financially, as you just presented all the different decisions from different courts we went through. That was very expensive. Also, since this decision, I have not been able to practice any audit for the public companies, and since last year, January, I have not been able to do any accounting whatsoever. So it has taken a toll on me financially, as well as emotionally, because I was very well reputed person in the community, serving in the community, and it has blemished my name to quite a bit extent, as I agreed with you that it was because of my conduct. Since then, I have, as I mentioned, have been looking at all the quality control files and manuals of various CPA firms where this kind of wrongdoing can be stopped, and how they have been able to stop the same kind of wrongdoing in their firm, and how they have been able to control regardless of number of clients. And then I have also a chance to look upon and see what I lacked, where I did not pay proper attention, where I should have paid a lot more attention. And it was my fault as an engagement partner on these 3 clients. So I will only accept the clients which I can handle. And also I have to look upon and see what are the new rules and regulations for PCAOB and US GAAP to make sure and appraise myself to see that what are the rules in place so I can comply with them. I have done the CPE in that regard, continuing professional educations, and I will continue to do so.
Mr. Kabani, could you tell the board about the nature of your accounting practice right now and how it would change if your CPA certificate were restored?
Currently, as we speak, there is no accounting practice. Since last year, from 2017, when the SCC issued the verdict on agreeing with the PCAOB, our registration was revoked. My and my firm's registration was revoked, and I was unable to practice any audits for the public companies. So I have not done that. I was doing some accounting and tax work. Since last year, after the agreement with the California Board of Accountancy, when I surrendered my license, I agreed not to engage in any accounting activities, and I have not done anything since then. So far, I am in a stage where I am just keeping myself appraised with the accounting rules and regulations, but I'm not doing any tax or auditing work.
Okay, Your Honor, I don't have any more questions for Mr. Kabani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Durkar. Ms. Perkins, did you have any questions you want to follow up on with your client before I have the board members ask questions?
I do not, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you so much. Ms. Reed, then I'll turn it over to you to poll each individual board member to see if they have questions for petitioner, please.
Thank you. Carrie Ann Farrell Hines,
I have no questions at this time.
Dan Jacobson,
I have no questions at this time. Your Honor, I do request, may we take a 5-minute break, the kind of break that old men like me need now and again?
Absolutely. You don't need to say anything more. Let's go off the record. It's 4:07. Let's come back at, would 5 minutes truly be sufficient for you?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Let's come back at 4:12 p.m. then. 5 minutes. We'll be back.
Thank you so much.
All right, we are back on the record. It's 4:14 p.m. We all took a very necessary break, and now we'll go back to the board member questions. I believe, Mr. Jacobson, I just want to make sure you didn't have any further questions before we move on to the next member.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do have no further questions.
Thank you so much. All right, Ms. Reed, I'll let you take it from there.
All right, thank you. Soshi Leon,
No questions.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I do have a question. With reference to the council letter, it is on page 20. There are some redactions on here, and I believe it has been indicated what these redactions are. Am I correct? Are we able to state the individual that this paragraph pertains to?
I'm not clear, Ms. Lopez. This is Stephanie Perkins, where you're referring. Perhaps I'm.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Perkins. On the letter, I believe it's your letter, and it's PET 020.
Yes, I don't have.
My copy has redactions.
Mr. Dakar, are you able to point me to the direction? We don't have the Bates numbered copy document, so I'm a little bit at a handicap here.
Yeah, Ms. Perkins, if you look at page 3 of your letter,
yes,
the second paragraph, it's actually the first full paragraph on that page. There are a number of redactions, including on the second line. The first redaction, it refers to an audit staff employee, and there's a blank there, and then it says CPA. So that name has been redacted, and I am supposing that is the same Mr. Saeed who is referred to and whose name isn't redacted in some of the federal decisions we looked at.
correct. Just for clarification, Ms. Lopez, I believe that the redactions are made by the Attorney General's office, incidental to ensuring privacy of various individuals who may be referenced. However, again, to counsel's point, to Deputy Attorney General Dakar's point, that Mr. Saeed, who is one of those individuals, in fact, I think he's the only individual listed there, was referenced specifically in public records.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. My question has to do with sentence about midway through that paragraph, which states that Mr. Saeed, I'm going to say his name, later admitted under oath in the PCAOB hearing regarding the matter that claims were false, and then it further says, lied to teach Mr. Kabani a lesson for not promoting him to shareholder. And I want to know whether this is testimony that occurred with the January 22nd, 2015 PCAOB order.
Ms. Lopez, this is Stephanie Perkins. It was connection with the original hearing before the administrative hearing officer. However, I would defer to Mr. Kabani, who was present, if you would like to answer your question more specifically, as I was not present, and I want to make sure that you get a clear answer to your question.
Okay. Yeah, so this case basically pertains to the two people's testimony, Mr. Saeed versus me and my staff. And Mr. Saeed, when he presented all the documents which he was gathering from Kabani Company's file to the PCAOB as a witness, he went there and he presented those documents. In the hearing, he submitted an affidavit saying that he falsified the documents before submitting to the PCAOB. So he had agreed on that, and the hearing officer at that time in his judgment has mentioned that there is a problem relating to the creditability of Saeed. However, they still found him more credible than me and my staff, who all have testified in that hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Kabani. What I wish was part of this packet was that testimony or the affidavit from Mr. Saeed, and I don't believe it is a part of our packet of information. Is that correct?
That is correct. If needed, I can provide it today, actually, because I have in my record that affidavit. I thought that the Attorney General's office would have that because that was part of the PCAOB case. So I'm not sure. If it doesn't have, I can provide that affidavit and for your record. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not sure if that's necessary now. I just wanted to point out that I would have liked to have seen it. But thank you. No further questions.
This is a court reporter, Ms. Perkins. If you can please mute your microphone, ma'am.
Yes, I thought it was muted again. Thank you. I seem to be the hang up here today. Forgive me.
Okay, this is Ms. Reed. I'll proceed. D.D. Owens.
Thank you. Yes, I do have one question for Mr. Kabani. From what I understand, you were the lead engagement partner on all three issuers. What I'm trying to understand is, given the state of the work paper file, how were you able to complete the work required as the lead engagement partner to ultimately verify the work was completed, you oversaw the work, and issue the opinion?
So these three clients pertaining were audit clients, which I had acted as an engagement partner. They were different dates. The reporting dates were different. They were not on the same date, or even the year end were different. So I was able to supervise and look at it. Now, you have to understand that what I'm now going to say is not defending again, because I have already accepted the thing. But the reason for all this happened is that we had at that time installed the paperless work paper file system in the computer, which was very new in 2008. It had just come out from the PPC, which is a Thomson Reuters, a multi-billion-dollar company. At that time, it was not a network model. The files, you have to install the PPC program on each laptop separately. So what we were doing is that we had each staff doing the work, and they will come, and at the end of the audit, the engagement manager or supervisor will accumulate work papers from all the file and put it in a one common file, which will be available for the partner's review. And that's how we were reviewing, and then it will go to the engagement partner and the concurring partner in this case. What happened was, and there are also documentation support there, proof there, that our program stopped working. They froze right before this inspection was going to take place. And our staff was frantically communicating with the Thomson Reuters staff. There is a communication trail, which is evidence present. We have that evidence. However, they were not allowed to be presented in the hearing. But we have between the Thomson Reuters staff and my staff, where they were instructing how to open the document and how to add the documents which were not being open. So there were some issues relating to the computer matter as well, in addition to the other stuff, and that also added to the misery in this whole affair.
So just one clarifying question. So when you ultimately signed off on the audit and gave your opinion, you actually looked at all the work papers on these separate computers to make sure that everything was fine?
Exactly. And then it was accumulated in one work paper file, which I had signed off. I had looked at it and made sure that each and every work has been performed, and I had signed off on each and every work paper individually. Each audit process, I had signed it off on the work paper file. So those work paper files were stored until when we were getting ready for this inspection to be put in a computer, because when PCOB staff came at that time, I don't know what is the now procedure, they will ask you to provide them the laptops, and they will ask you to store all the clients they have chosen to be stored in each laptop. So if they are coming with 5 staff, we will have to provide them 5 laptops from our office, and we'll make sure that whatever clients they have selected, 8 clients, we will make sure that we supply 8 files on each laptop. So when we were doing that, at that time, we discovered that there were issues with the IT matter as well. And that, as you can see from the SEC verdict, that staff was trying to open the document. And during that process, they have taken back the document which was in common file they could not open. They had gone back to the individual laptop and brought it back. And that was the problem there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Errol Pay.
No questions, thank you.
Deirdre Robinson.
No questions at this time, thank you.
Katrina Salazar.
No questions. Thank you.
Michael Savoy,
No questions.
Mark Silverman,
No questions.
Yin Tu,
No question.
and Nancy Corrigan. No questions. All right, thank you.
All right, and I just want to make sure there were no other board members that had any follow-up questions. If so, just speak up, please. All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised anywhere, so thank you very much. That then takes us to our closing remarks, and both the Deputy Attorney General and Petitioner's Counsel will have an opportunity to do so. I'll start with you, Mr. Durkar, and then Ms. Perkins, you get the final word. Mr. Durkar, you're up next. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. As I believe you all may have just noticed, Mr. Kabani is still trying to relitigate the facts about what happened in 2008, but you should have no hesitancy in accepting the PCAOB's finding that Mr. Kabani orchestrated the misconduct and acted with knowledge of his wrongdoing. Those findings were reviewed many times. The hearing officer found that first, and Mr. Kabani petitioned for review by the PCAOB, which performed the de novo review, a fresh look at the evidence. Mr. Kabani then took PCAOB's decision up to the SEC, which again exercised its independent judgment de novo review of the evidence, and it had all of the evidence before it. It sustained the PCAOB's decision and finding and the discipline. And then Mr. Kabani took it up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which issued a memorandum of decision. Again, de novo review, their independent judgment. They looked at the evidence and they found that it supported the finding of knowing and intentional misconduct. Mr. Kabani has the burden of proof here today to show that he and his firm should be reinstated, but he's treating this proceeding like another opportunity to relitigate the facts that have been found against him over and over. That is a done deal. He should not be doing that right now, and there is considerable public protection concerns here because he's still doing so. The passage of time since 2008 would be mitigating if there had been contrition and admission facing up to the misconduct at some point. The concern is that rehabilitation cannot occur absent admission of the extent of one's own wrongdoing. And the board should be concerned that dishonesty is at the core of the misconduct here and all those decisions that are in your packet. And rather than look also at the misconduct itself, rather than deal with the consequences of having incomplete audit work papers, Mr. Kabani orchestrated a program to alter them, even altered the computer metadata to try to make edits look like they occurred before the paperwork deadlines. This attempt to deceive investigators does raise a concern that probation would not be sufficient protection. Because Mr. Kabani tried to conceal his misconduct from investigators and still denies that he was involved in that, and we see that he mounted a years-long campaign in which he stubbornly denied that responsibility, and he's still doing so here today. It seems like he is resistant to lawful authority and to taking responsibility for what he did. The misconduct was very serious, so on behalf of the people, I would assert that there are very serious concerns and a minimal showing, if any, of rehabilitation in light of failing to owe up to the extent of his misconduct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durkar. And then Ms. Perkins, any concluding remarks in support of the petition?
Yes, Your Honor, a few brief remarks. First, I'd like to reiterate my thanks to the board and to those in attendance otherwise for hearing this petition. And I would like to address Mr. Ducar's comments and apologize to a degree if our offices, in my office in any way, or Mr. Cabani, has led this board to believe, as Mr. Ducar would indicate, that we are attempting to relitigate the facts. In fact, in response to concern that we hadn't produced certain evidence with respect to the underlying hearing, for example, admissions in an affidavit made by one of the witnesses in that case, who appears to be somewhat at the heart of some of the underlying issues, we felt that that would be attempting to relitigate the matter. And Mr. Cabani, as he said, I would dispute, or excuse me, respectfully disagree with Mr. Ducar's assessment that this is a resistance, an attempt to relitigate or a resistance to authority. Mr. Cabani and his firm exercised their due process rights to pursue redress and seek a remedy when they were unhappy with and disagreed with the original outcome of the PCAOB hearing. That doesn't mean that he can't, in retrospect, accept those findings. The facts may have been in dispute, and he may personally disagree to some extent, but he obviously has exercised complete contrition in that he now, contrary to the time when this was occurring, it appears, recognizes completely that ownership of and oversight of these engagements rests on his shoulders. Whether it was his purposeful conduct or else some other person's personal conduct becomes irrelevant to a degree in this respect only. And again, not to abdicate responsibility. Strictly, and for the sole reason that he, not unlike a respondeat superior or an agency relationship, for lack of a better description, Your Honor, and others, members of the board, the buck stopped with him, and he knew it. He understood that, and he let others, understandably so, I shouldn't say we should understand why he did it, but he accepts responsibility for the fact that they acted under his direction, and that at best he gave poor direction. In some cases, didn't give any direction. There's no doubt that that's an abdication of responsibility that he can't avoid and isn't trying to. So again, to the extent that the board has interpreted our submission or petition for reinstatement as an effort to relitigate these facts, that is not the case. Again, he agrees that he's accepted the PCAOB outcome. He's accepted the appeal outcomes and the de novo reviews, and has tried to move on with his life, albeit under certain constraints, not only as a result of this actual order that ensued as a result of his stipulation for surrender, but also due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It's limited his ability to earn a living. He's asking humbly to come back to the practice under any conditions that this board, if it's inclined to consider the petition, may deem appropriate with any appropriate restrictions to demonstrate his ongoing commitment. As we indicated in our documentation submitted, Mr. Cabani had operated in practice for 28 years approximately, or so thereabouts, with an unblemished record. He, prior to this and after the events leading to this outcome, had clean PCAOB inspections without any adverse findings or concerns with regard to either the prior audit or the audits that were inspected afterwards, which shows that this was an aberrant situation. Again, not trying to discount the importance of it. No one wants anyone to be consciously or irresponsibly attempting to deceive or mislead regulators. But again, Mr. Cabani is looking for ways to come back to the practice in a different way that might allow him to continue as he did when he was a member of I believe he was a committee member, as we said earlier, for licensing. Forgive me, I've just lost the terminology here for this board. So he's demonstrated in the past extreme commitment to the appropriateness of this board's authority, and has no way intended to abdicate that or to disregard it. So I don't think that exercising his due process rights is truly a resistance to authority. And we will take whatever action the board deems necessary to demonstrate that. But he is truly rehabilitated. And I spend a lot of time with licensees, and I can say that I believe he's ready to come back to the practice and do whatever this board deems necessary to demonstrate that he is not a risk to the public, and that he will take his obligation if reinstated as a CPA, seriously, exercising the utmost of integrity and professional responsibility, maintaining awareness, and again, even if it was a tax practice, implementing safeguards to protect against any kind of conduct that could be in any way construed to be a risk to the public, that this board is obviously is here to protect, and that he as a CPA has an obligation to consider. If assuming that Deputy Attorney General Dakar does not have an objection and that the board is amenable, Mr. Kabani would like to make a few closing comments on his own that I think may be poignant to clarify some of the concerns stated by counsel in his closing statement.
That's fine. A couple of brief remarks will be fine. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Kabani, did you want to add those comments, please?
Right. First of all, I would like to thank board members, Honorable Administrative Law Judge, Office of Deputy Attorney General, and everybody present to allow us to hear my case. I had deliberately tried to explain in the question to the Deputy Attorney General's office, taking responsibility. I think at least I have said 10 to 15 times that I take solely full responsibility. I have mentioned it probably 10 to 15 times in various questions. And I don't know any other way in English language I can take the full responsibility other than that. I take full responsibility. I have mentioned that when one of the member asked me a question that, why the affidavit of Mr. Saeed was not submitted, and I did not submit it because we did not want this process to be another case where we are trying to present our innocence. I'm not trying to present here my innocence. This is not that proceeding. And that's why we did not present any of the affidavits or anything like that. The answer I gave was the result of a question asked by a board member. And even then, I had mentioned to the board members in their questions that I take full responsibility. When Mr. Durkar asked me that, do you blame it on a witness? And what did I say? I said, no. Witness has nothing to do with it, whatever I did. It was my responsibility. I take full responsibility. So, Mr. Durkar, I have no idea how can I explain further, in what language, that to explain that please accept my apology on this. If my language is not clear or my English is not proper, I'm willing to take whatever verbiage you give me and accept it, that this was my responsibility and I am fully responsible for all the mess this happened in this case.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabani, for your testimony and your time today. Thank you, Ms. Perkins, for your presentation, as well as Mr. Durkar. At this point, the hearing is concluded, the record is closed, and the case is submitted for decision, and we are off the record in this matter. Just stay with us, counsel, and Mr. Kabani for just a second in case our court reporter has any questions about spellings. And Mr. Sangeet, if you could get me the end time and page count for our court reporter form, please. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. The reporter has no questions. If a transcript or when a transcript is ordered, I'll go ahead and go through the proper channels for spellings. I do appreciate the offer. I have an official stop time of the second hearing for 4:38 p.m. with a page count of 50 pages.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sangeet. And then, unless there's any other questions for the parties, from my perspective, you are free to go. Ms. Corrigan, is there any reason we need to keep them any longer?
No, at this time they're free to go, and once we have only those present who should be, then we will go into closed session under agenda item 6.
All right, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Take care, Your Honor. Good to see you.
Thank you, good to see you as well. Take care.
Thank you, Your Honor.